what is the most underrated skill for elite sport that no one trains?
You can be the fittest, the fastest, the strongest, but if you don't have the capacity to tune into your own thoughts and feelings and adapt that, then I think that can separate the good to the great.
What is one myth you'd love to bust about female athletes who become mothers?
That their time is done, that is finish of their career and that they can't coexist, they can't work hand in hand.
You said that your performance actually improved and you were hitting more PBs when you came back from pregnancy.
As much as you're wanting to give yourself to a program and give everything to you, at the end of the day, baby still comes first.
Knowing what you know now, what you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
Ooh.
Welcome to 40G. Alicia Lucas, welcome to the 40G podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here. 40G, all the gals.
Woohoo. Now, this podcast has been a while in the making. I remember reaching out last year because, to be completely honest, I was at the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast a few years back and you guys were playing there. And I remember fangirling just a little bit and watching your career over the past few years, transitioning from the boots to the media side of things. And, you know, you're well known for being a bit of a legend and a Wagga Wagga New South Wales representative. So obviously very fond to my heart. So I'm excited to have this chat, but mainly talk about the motherhood tax that elite athletes feel, especially obviously in the female space, and how we can create more systemic resources and better resourcing pathways to ensure that more female athletes don't have to choose between being a mother and being an elite athlete. So, are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in. And the reason it's taken forever is, apologies, I run a complete circus. And so it's not from Kylie's point of view, it's from mine. I am all over the place wearing like 5 or 6 different hats a lot of the time. And as always, my beautiful children have gone sick right at the time when we've needed to record. So I'm excited that I've got some free time to be able to dive into this really important topic with you and really open up and provide my insights into what I think can really help and support athletes as they go through that journey and then as they transition beyond their professional sport as well.
Absolutely. And that's why you're on. Motherhood comes first always. So we totally respect that. All right, we're going to kick things off and just get straight into it with some rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you have to answer them first, whatever comes to mind. First one is, in your opinion, what is the most underrated skill for elite sport that no one trains?
I think mental resilience is probably a big one, and mental rehearsal that not many people spend a lot of time on training. You can be the fittest, the fastest, the strongest, but if you don't have the capacity to tune into your own thoughts and feelings and adapt that and mentally hone in on your capabilities and have that self-belief and visualize yourself being successful or doing repeat efforts and being able to back up time and time again when your team needs you, then I think that can separate the good to the great.
Huge fan of that, huge fan of the mindset side of sport. And I think it's completely untapped and we don't get taught about that enough. We do extra reps in a gym, but we, fail to do what's probably 90% of performance on the field, and that is mindset stuff. So completely agree with that. That's definitely a pass in my books.
That's it. I'm glad to stay on the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, you're free to go now. So question 2 is, who is the most impressive female athlete you have played with and why?
Pretty easy for me to say my best friend in Emily Cherry. I think from her capacity to be able to read the game, her intelligence with the game as well, what she could do with ball in hand, and her physicality and smarts around the game was phenomenal. I think also she had a few injuries throughout her career that probably limited her capacity to play consistently. And similar to me, she had a baby, came back, and then COVID ended her continued run in the sport as well. And she decided that the next phase was for her and not sticking around. So she would have to be most like well-balanced and well-rounded, also like very fit as well too. But I had the privilege of training with Maddie Levi at the back end of my career. And from a sevens point of view, from an athletic point of view, how strong she was in the gym, how fast she was. And sometimes that doesn't correlate to fitness as well, but her repeat efforts and repeat speed, and you see that in the way that she plays still continually, is out of this world. And so from an athletic performance point of view, I think Maddie Levi is like nothing other than no one like I've seen before. But then from a whole point of view, rugby smarts, rugby IQ, kick skills, fitness speed, and all of that, then it would have to be Emily Cherry.
Good picks. I've been following Maddie Levi a little bit too, and yeah, just incredible, just her athleticism and so young, which is just, it's so exciting for the future of the sport. And Maddie, if you're listening to this, which I'm sure you will be, we need to get you on the podcast to, you know, talk about the future generations and how different things are now that a lot of these younger athletes have probably had more resources and have more structure. And just, it's proving the point that women's sport is becoming so exciting because more resources are being dedicated to it. So the more that we can dedicate resources, the better it's going to get.
100%. Yeah, she's really a byproduct of that early professionalism in sport, having played or gone through the AFL pathway into then picking up and playing from Australia from a really young age, where it was not just camp-based or selected off the back of a national competition. She's day in, day out competing at a world-class level, training at a world-class level, which has such a difference on her ability as an athlete. And that's where I feel like the big difference in the game from when I played to where it was. We were touch players playing rugby, like footy players, whereas now they are incredible elite athletes that are running around on the sevens pitch.
Yes, absolutely. Very exciting to see where it all goes. Now, final question. What is one myth you'd love to bust about female athletes who become mothers?
That their time is done, that is the finish of their career, and that they can't coexist, they can't work hand in hand. I think we're starting to see that a lot more across Olympic sports, across rugby sports in Australia domestically, and that there isn't the capacity for women to do both. Because obviously you can do it, but to do it exceptionally and to be probably better than, I think that is something that people don't think is capable.
Yes. Now, I'm going to read out a stat which is going to speak to that very clearly, which I found the other day and I think is extremely interesting. So, the stat is that research shows that approximately 40.5% of elite female athletes experienced improved performance postpartum. Now, that is a super powerful counter narrative to traditional sort of assumptions around women and sport. And when we chatted previously, you could attest to this, where you said that your performance actually improved and you were hitting more PBs when you came back from pregnancy. So can you speak to that a little bit from your experience?
Yeah, so I fell pregnant and I had my first daughter over in Japan. But so I went from competing for the Olympics, and then it was essentially at this stage it was postponed, but I thought it was going to be cancelled. So at the peak, pretty much peaking in my career, and then I had a baby a year later in 2021, and then it wasn't until probably a year later I returned to the Aussie Sevens setup again in March 2022. In that time, I'd been playing and training domestically in Japan, but pretty much just doing my own program, own rehab, obviously living in a foreign country and no longer contracted. And then I returned, and I initially had a small little calf injury, probably because I was classic old and up the ante too quickly. But once I returned back to full capable training and back in that environment, I was hitting PBs that I hadn't hit pre-child, when I was peaking for the Olympics. Obviously, there was some certain things that had changed, but I was, max 1RM squat, bench press, And then the thing that probably just took the longest to come back for me was my speed, purely only because I didn't train throughout my pregnancy the same way elite athletes are training now. And they're hitting, you've seen some incredible videos from out of the uh, Euro soccer and from Michaela Brake as well from New Zealand, them hitting 90% of top speed at 32, 34 weeks pregnant, whereas I wasn't running fast at all. So that was probably the thing that came back and what's probably shifted in the narrative around training for the elite pregnant athlete, and then how much then you can train that when you get back. But that was probably the thing that took me a couple more months longer. But then I was hitting speeds. By the time I retired, I was probably running as fast as what I'd ever run in my career. And so I probably should have kept going, to be honest. But we were living in a different country between my husband's sport and my sport, and it was a choice that we made as a family. But yeah, I was nearly every week coming in and hitting a PB in that 4 or 5 month period that I was back in the Aussie Sevens program. I had pushed like a record that hadn't been broken since pre-Rio, the team's yo-yo score. Pushed Charlotte to help. She broke that after coming back, and then I hit similar score that what I got around Rio. So that was back in 2016. And so, yeah, literally example, a definite living example of what that statistic was about how much the postpartum had changed my physiological makeup to be able to enhance my performance a lot more.
Yeah. So you speak about physiologically how you felt. How did you feel mentally coming back from a pregnancy?
Well, I think because when I returned to the Aussie Seven setup, I was obviously caring for a baby during the middle of the night at times, waking up to all of that. I would finish training and then I would be on playtime, activities, bath, put down. Like there was no rest. And so my actual mental capacity, I had so much more that I could take in because I was so used to doing a lot more than just what the elite athlete does in general life. I was looking after another human. I was juggling all the normal life things, plus also keeping someone else alive and also having fun with that human being as well. So I probably had a lot more mental stamina than what I previously had. And I had the ability to switch on to know what was really important and filter out what wasn't important probably a lot better. But then it was also always the mental juggle of making sure that baby came first, Matilda came first, and that still my dream of achieving rugby was also still second. So that's a bit of a hard thing to have to juggle mentally because as much as you're wanting to give yourself to a program and give everything to you, at the end of the day, baby still comes first. So a lot more capacity, I think, mentally, a bit more mentally resilient. I'd been through a lot more than what I had. I had a bit more of a world exposed knowledge. And obviously when things got hard at training, I was like, this is nothing compared to childbirth or like going through giving birth in a foreign country with a non-English speaking doctor, hospital, and so things like that this extra rep that I have to do was absolutely nothing in comparison to that. And I probably had a little less empathy for teammates that complained or that younger generations about certain things when it came to fitness, when it came to hard work, when it came to showing up, and when it came to looking after your body. But then I was a lot more emotionally intelligent after becoming a mother as well, and a lot more sensitive to how I made other people feel on the field and how I impacted the group in a positive way and how I tried to uplift people as well, because you do probably soften a little bit in motherhood, and I had a lot more of a care factor in those sort of things. But my still old hard edge when it came to, making the line or doing an extra rep or sucking it up because you made a mistake, that probably got magnified because I had no time or tolerance for shit, essentially.
Yeah. So popularity probably went down a little bit, but everything else went up. It sounds like you almost like develop these maternal instincts and you by default become a bit more of a coach on the field. Did you feel that?
I'd probably already been like that a little bit in the back end of my career as we kind of transitioned after the Commonwealth Games into like that last couple of year phases. We had a big influx of really young players and that were coming in from school. They were only 16, 17, hadn't finished school. So they needed a lot of nurturing and support anyway. I worked with the Players Association as the rep for them anyway. So I already felt like I had that bit of a voice. But for me, I think the biggest thing was proving to myself that I could do this, and also proving to the other girls that they could also do this if that was what their path, and they wanted to do that as well too. So it was about
Mm.
showing them essentially that they can they can do hard things. They can go away and have children. They can come back and they can still perform if that's what they want to achieve. And also showing them that like someone who had such a rich career probably still couldn't not get picked if you didn't show up and you didn't perform and didn't do what you needed to do day in, day out for that jersey. And so that's always a big lesson for players to see that sometimes no matter how much you want something, if you don't meet the criteria or you're not, I hadn't obviously played in 2.5 years or more, that sometimes the fairy tale doesn't work out as well. And I think that's a really big
Mm.
lesson for them to learn, that things doesn't always come on a platter. It's not always as easy as it seems for them as well too. So yeah, it was, I felt like I was probably a bit more of a mentor, a motivational mentor as such.
So, how did you feel in terms of falling pregnant and the support that you felt around you? Was maternity leave a thing when you first had kids? Did you feel as though you're almost nervous announcing that you're pregnant because it could mean that you lose your spot and all those other sort of pressures that you feel as a mother and a female athlete?
Yeah, 100%. My situation obviously a little bit different because of COVID, but I think the principle still applies that I was I was on contract to the end of 2020. But at the time when the Olympics were cancelled in March, April, we were all into lockdown. And my husband had come back from Japan and we were living separately. And we'd had the conversations around, okay, which I think a lot of athletes, when they talk about that, it's a scheduled calendar. Our opportunity was, let's see how my body goes. I'd been on the contraceptive pill for over 10 years. And so what that impact was going to have on my body, I had no idea also. Obviously the stresses of being a female athlete for that period of time as well. And the load that I'd put on my body, I didn't know how I was going to respond when I obviously went off the pill and then we went about trying. And so we were having those conversations. Okay, well, let's try for X amount of time. If I'm not pregnant by that time and the Olympics do go ahead, then we'll obviously have to stop, which I think that conversation a lot of female athletes and their partners will have around, okay, if we've got a short window because maybe there's a World Cup coming up or there's an Olympics or there's a cycle or something that we want to get that for, we've kind of got to start now, hope that maybe we'll fall in
Mm.
this window, or eventually that may make us miss that. If we do miss that, are we okay with that? Are we happy if we miss that? Psychologically, will we have regret around that, or we'll be so happy that we made the choice to have a child? So all of those conversations happen normally anyways throughout that period of time. And you're talking about like, am I on contract? How are we going to go financially if my contract does expire? Or will I get a contract renewed in that period of time? So those conversations happen regardless of COVID or not. We were fortunate enough in the time frame that we had that I was able to fall pregnant. And then it became the conversation around, I feel really guilty. Am I going to be letting my team down? That I've chosen something that's
Mm.
really selfish for me and my family, my husband. After 10 years, I've given everything to this playing group. You've sacrificed or chosen to miss weddings, birthdays, family occasions, all of those things. And now you're going to be removing yourself from the group at a time when it was really quite volatile. No one knew it was happening. Everything was up in the air. is that selfish of me to eject right now and leave them hanging? So that was a big conversation that we had as well, and a big thing I had to kind of address too. And then, but obviously when you tell your bestest friends that you're having a baby, they are so happy for you and so excited. And they're obviously that part, they're like, oh no, you're not going to be training with us, or I was moving to another country, so not going to see you. And so there's always that sadness around it. But ultimately the biggest emotion is excitement and happiness for you. And so my contract expired and moved to Japan. And then, so then I'd moved to a foreign country with no job and at 20 weeks pregnant. And so there's no maternity leave there. And even when I tried to then move into that next phase and look at some physio opportunities, I was also like 30 weeks pregnant in a foreign country where COVID was hit. So they weren't letting anyone into anything. So then I had a period of time where I obviously wasn't working, which can be really common for elite athletes if that is the case. Contract expires, or so they're having to rely on their partner's financials to support them. And then when I returned, I was able to return. Once I returned to a certain level, I obviously had to be competing at a certain level and be, checked by Rugby Australia that I was actually worth them wanting to invest back into me and to pay me a salary. I was paid on part of the program that if you had been on contract and your contract expired, there's like a 3-month pay period where you can trial to see whether you can get back, and that's paid and supported into the program as part of the maternity policy, which I think is really great if that's the ambition for the player to get back and their contract expires in that time or it isn't renewed as well. There's kind of like a train on period. So then I was able to financially support myself while we were in Sydney for that 3 or 4 month period and return back to my monthly salary, what I had before. And then obviously the period of when I finished, then my contract expired. Like I'd retired, so your contract expires anyway there. But obviously within the pregnancy policy, especially in rugby, there's a certain point where you have to tell your coaching staff and your team doctor that you're pregnant, and then you will transition to, at a certain point of time, a safe job. And rugby, that's included in rugby, depending on how long that your contract is for. And then you obviously will go through that. But it's all obviously individual and case by case with that. But there is a framework around for that, and the player is supported through that as well.
Yeah. Interesting. It'd be interesting to see how it kind of shapes up to different sports, because I know that at least in AFL, AFLW, they've brought in that there is 12-month maternity leave within, the play group. But there's been instances where it just has not been the case. I mean, like the best example would probably be last year's Corinne Peterson from Carlton, who was the long-time skipper and handed over her captaincy only last year to have her first child. And then when she returned, she was told that she wasn't going to have a contract. Now, you can understand it from some perspectives from Carlton, because they've obviously got to do what's best for their list, but it says that the system does have flaws, right? Like they should be able to have, as Kate McCarthy said, they should have a bigger list so that they can actually, allow them to come back, especially if in rugby's case, if you have a 3-month period to prove that you're sort of up to it, it just gives that safety net. And this is obviously what we talk about, this sort of mother tax. It's almost like it's opportunity cost, right? You're probably at your peak, and then you sort of have to choose whether you have a child or whether you continue at your peak. And athletes, we have a shelf life in and of itself. So it's really hard to sort of juggle where you're going to fit to have, a child or 2 children, and how many you have in that period. So yeah, it just says a lot that we sort of need to build a system that's more sustainable for mothers, but it is very much case by case, because this is sort of a new age thing. So I think one of the best things we can do is have chats like this and see with female athletes what has worked for them, and what areas that we can improve to ensure that we keep bringing female athletes back from pregnancy. Because if they're going to perform better, like that stat said, it's a business win, it's a business opportunity. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, 100%. And you look at the example of Emma Tonegado. So Emma Veron, she just recently announced that she's pregnant. She's got a final year left on her Sharks contract, which will which has ended, but she was being just been re-signed for 3 years by the Dragons. So they know that she's going to bring so much to their club, postpartum experience, playing ability as well, if she gets back to being able to play at that level. And they've just signed her for 3 years. And so that is obviously the other end of the spectrum compared to the AFLW example, that they're going, we're going to invest in you regardless of what happens with the birth of your child. We want you to have play in any capacity to be able to play. And having those options, I think, in contracts will become a lot more consistent, should become a lot more normal, and having like a 1+1 option. Like if the player decides that they don't want to return to playing, that they can mutually not have to do that, because some players have a baby and decide that this is it, this is all I wanted to do. I don't want to do sport anymore. I'm totally okay with that. Or the club can have a decision based on that trial period of whether you're going to fit our mold, because ultimately the clubs are running as businesses, and they need to have high performance, and that support needs to be there. Yes, definitely for the mother, but then it's also the same at the capacity for whether, if they're not, you can't just have people in a club if they're not competing and making the club better in any capacity. And so I think having options and availability for that is really important for players to prove that their capacity to perform is there, and that they're going to seek those benefits. And that might be a 3 to 6 months period, because even in my case, it took 6 months to get back to that peak speed and then being able to perform. And especially when seasons at certain clubs are so short, it may need to be then we're going to re-sign you for next year's preseason and see where you're at, give you, and support you and provide things in different ways in that off-season period, and have them involved in all different capacities as well, because as the statistics show, the benefits of having them involved outweigh that loss of the time that they're out of the game for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just says a lot to that psychological safety that if a player realizes that they're not going to be kicked to the curb as soon as they, have or announce that they're pregnant and that their contract isn't up in the air, they're going to be more likely to have children. And the other thing too is that, maybe, and if they can't come back, well, then there should be a discussion of how can we transition them maybe into another role within the organization, whether that's more of an administrative role, a coaching role, leadership role, whatever it might be. There needs to be that sort of transition so that they're not just left high and dry if they do fall pregnant.
Yeah, and we were speaking about this earlier. Like, I think having athletes involved in clubs or organizational unions that have had previous playing experience, that can transition into a role, that have been through something like motherhood that is so transformative, that they are such valuable assets to the program, to the union, to the club, that they should be utilized and maximized in any capacity if the player wants to do that. Some players have, they don't want that, but a lot of players are screaming out for that connection point. And like you said, not being left like, oh, I've had a baby, that's it, that's my time done with AFL, NRL, rugby, netball, whatever it is, that I'm still a valued member of our community, and my input is important, my skill set is valued, and that I'm going to be a member, because I was saying, like, I always want to be considered like a member of Aussie Sevens for life. And so I think that's really important piece if the transition back from motherhood doesn't come to fruition of return to play, then how does that player still stay involved in some capacity as well?
Exactly right. And you were quite involved and passionate about player transition post-career anyway. What sort of stuff have you seen, and what things do you want implemented in the future so that players have a life after sport and it's not so much of this moral dilemma that when they retire that they are no one, that they don't have an identity, that they have nothing to fall back onto? Like, what do you think we can be doing better from the start of their career to ensure that they're better set up post-career?
This is such a big area as more sports, especially in the women's space, especially that more sports have become professional, that a lot of players have used a lot longer of their lifespan to dedicate to professionalism in the game. And then that way that their identity is shaped around what that sport is. They kind of become Alicia Lucas, the rugby player, and how then what's next when that finishes. So from day dot in rugby or in a lot of play, there's obviously a players union that looks there to support and help off the field. And so I am, especially since I've retired, I am trying, as soon as younger players are coming in, there is so much more to life than just your sport, and trying to reiterate that to them from day dot, and then connecting them with things that they have interest in and that they may potentially see they might want to do beyond the game, and getting them to study that, use their spare time, use their free time to really invest in themselves, because better people off the field makes better people on the field. You're so much more holistic or whole rounded, and you've got a lot more intellectual insights. You have passions and ideologies that are away from the sport. And so your whole piece isn't just centered around being an athlete, because already you have to dedicate so much of your eat, sleep, recovery routine to being an athlete. You can do a lot more to support you as just that whole person. And so that's a big thing that I think a lot of unions can do better in providing that. They're obviously so performance outcome based and driven from the get-go, but we're seeing that that leads to so much more burnout. The players don't really, there's performance pressure. There's so much more where you listen to any of the elite athletes that speak at like Olympics or world championships, or that players that just have such respect. They, they're knitting outside of the games, or they're surfing, or they read books, or they do a podcast, or they do something that gives them a greater sense of purpose than just playing sport. But they're also really good at just playing the sport, really good at the sport that they play as well too. That's a big thing that we push early doors as well. And then having opportunities to get work experience. The same what you do at school when you don't know what you want to do when you finish school. It's the same thing when you're a professional athlete. Networking, trying your hand at different things that you're interested in, studying on the side, going to university, doing a TAFE course, starting a TikTok, whatever it is that you want to do that you're passionate about, going to some acting skills and classes, just having a go and opening your mindset to whatever else is out there. Because if you play for 10 years, that's only, and you live to 100, it's only 10% of your whole life, which is really, it's important and it's significant, but it's not that big in the big scheme of things. So what's going to give you that same love, passion and drive outside of sport? And then the big piece is then when the time comes, trying to be as prepared and as planned for what life is going to be like after the game as possible. There's obviously always the unexpected timing of, say, a COVID happening, cancel the Olympics, or a really bad injury that damages your career and it's career ending. Those things you have no control over. But being prepared and plan for what it might look like, that helps that transition be eased a lot more. It doesn't leave you so lost and isolated in that time too. And then as beyond the game, the biggest things I've learned and found out with players is that they just miss that connection point. And so you get removed from the team group chat. You don't have people that you get to see every day. You don't do the same physical load and physical activity that you did every single day. So it's using those three things. Who are your support people? Who are your connection people? And how regularly can you keep in contact with them? Reaching out if you need further support and not being afraid to say that, hey, this is really tough. Having a group of like-minded people that have transitioned before as a support network, which is hopefully what we're trying to do with the Global Rugby Players Foundation, having a group of people that you can talk to that have been through it, understand how hard it is. It's the same in motherhood, a mum's group. It's the exact same thing. It's like having a group of people that just get what you're going through, really understand it, and find that it's okay to say that today was a really shit day. I had a really rough day. It was really hard. Or, hey, I tried this new thing and I really enjoyed it. I think I might go next week to my surf class. And you're finding a sense of purpose and identity outside and away from your sport. And then, being physically active. We find so much benefit from physical activity, and you did it for so long. You loved being physically active for so long. And so then trying to work into that physical space and providing opportunities to do that as well.
Yes, louder for the ones at the back. You hit so many nails on the head there. First of all, I absolutely love what you're saying about athlete first, make them better people. And you know yourself, if you only see yourself as an athlete, everything becomes personal. Everything your performance becomes personal. It is your whole identity. And I'm so passionate about sport is only one part of your
Yeah.
identity. And as you mentioned earlier, is that you felt because you're a mother, you have other priorities going on, you kind of detach from the outcome a bit. And by default, you actually become a better athlete because you're not so obsessive over it. You're helping your team more. And that is just something that we need to really hit home for a lot of young athletes is that if you have other areas of your life that light you up, you're actually going to do better in your sport than if that is your whole life because you become obsessive, you become tunnel visioned, and you don't see the bigger picture. And you're actually not going to be a better teammate or a better athlete because you're not as willing to learn. You get quite defensive if, you get feedback and things like that. So that in and of itself is a massive thing to think about. And then I also really like what you're saying about it. I feel as though clubs should almost have this duty of care where if we're not getting paid a lot of money, it's like, well, how can we supplement that? Like, we should almost be for at least, I know AFLW, like it's a short season, right, in terms
Yeah.
of playing, but they're now contracted for the whole season. It should be right. For 3 months, you have to go and do work experience for, 3 or 4 hours a day, whatever it might be. And you can come and train in the afternoon. But we're going to help you get to, your career outside of sport. And even within the men's system where they are getting paid a lot of money, I still think that as soon as they do an injury or they're delisted, they're just not cared about. And it should almost be part of their contract that they have to volunteer, they have to do work experience, they have to give back to the community and actually build these skills so that once they leave, they're also going to be a benefit to society and benefit to themselves instead of just being a has-been athlete.
Yeah. You talk to a lot of like high level CEOs that have employed elite athletes or people from sporting backgrounds around how much more um, transferable skills are from sport to business. And they just say that like the worth ethic, get the words out, Alicia, is so much higher. Their attention to detail, their ability to critically analyze and self-reflect are on another level because that's what they've done day in, day out, honed into micro skills as well. And so I think it's a big thing that a lot of unions, organizations could do so much more of is employing past athletes to be able to be a part of their corporation and business because they have the actual game sense. They've got a greater broad sense of what the community needs, what the players need, what the fans want, what their parents want when they watch them because they've got touch points around all aspects of the game. Plus, then all they need to upskill in is whether it's the finance, accounting, business side to side, which they could do throughout their playing and career on the side as well. And so I think there's a lot more capacity for the actual, if you can't provide financial support, you can provide networks, you can provide opportunities, you can provide experiences which you have on tap because you are massive corporations and you use that all the time anyway. You genuinely care about the people that you have employed for you that are representing your game because you care about where they are in 10 years, you care where they are in 20 years, you actually care about what them. And I think a lot of female athletes are always when I hear the narrative around they wanting more, it's more that they just want to show some care point, that you actually have a genuine thought around players at the table. You have a genuine thought around why do I want to have that club associated with us or that demographic associated with us. It's that genuine love from the sport that you love so much. You just want to feel a little bit of it back every now and then.
Absolutely. And by default, that's going to actually attract better people into your system. So if you're only looking at it from a business perspective, that is actually going to pay dividends down the track. Now, we spoke about upskilling, and you you seem to be the queen of upskilling because, as I said yesterday, I saw you doing backflips on a bloody Pilates reformer or something. So Tell us a little bit about what you're up to now. Obviously, you're a commentator on Stan. You seem to be traveling here, there, and everywhere. Your frequent flyer points must be looking, pretty bloody good at the moment. So give us an insight as to what your life's like now.
Yeah, well, the message that my old coach Tim Walsh always used to say to me that like better people off the field make better people on the field, and I have a natural thirst for learning and upskilling. Like you wouldn't believe, but like pre the Olympics, I was reading and learning, going to like Brazilian Portuguese lessons because I thought that would, if I didn't get selected because I wasn't good enough, maybe they would take me as like a translator, and that I would be able to have that opportunity to be involved. Um, so I've always just found like using your brain in different ways. Like I think that was my point of difference when I played, was trying to be ahead intellectually, knowing what the players were going to do before they're going to do it, being able to listen to other languages and understand their line-out calls, like using that intelligence to better my performance. And so I think I've just always been addicted to finding new things and trying out new things, and being able to tick off like, oh, I've done that. Yep, I've been able to do that. And so I think that was where the Pilates kind of came into it, because of the new age learning and I've done a physiotherapy degree as a background. So I'm a physiotherapist. And then it was kind of two ways where I could combine physiotherapy in a rural area where I'm living now and a little bit of sport and like, or exercise prescription, instead of just like general population clients, being able to treat them as is, but then really push them into that exercise kind of phase and do the clinical Pilates. Not that I'm saying I'm going to get my 76-year-old grandmas doing backflips on the reformer, but who knows? And then I naturally love to chat and have a yarn. That was what I was known for in the field, yelling and dictating, directing everyone on and off the field. And so commentary kind of came naturally, but that came naturally to go into. But since then, what I've learned, it is so much harder than just talking about the sport. The broadcast world is a completely different kettle of fish. And I started just as an expert pundit, which I loved because I could just analyze the why and the how things were happening and give my brain insights into what I saw to other people in the field to try and upskill them. And I always thought that as a commentator, I want to use my expert as an elite player to demonstrate and show to viewers not how much I know, but how much they could see from what they were just watching on their screens, and give a bit more of an insight into the incredible athletes that we have, and give a little bit of backstory as to why and how they're able to do what they do. And then I've now transitioned and learning first voice commentary, which is the play-by-play, the lead commentator, which is so hard, but I absolutely love it. It gives me the same buzz and thrill, not so much as playing physically, but the nervousness and the stress and the ability to articulate words and get them out really quickly as well. I really love it and relish in it, and fortunate enough to be one of the first in Australia to be able to do that for international tests. And I get to go to the Hong Kong Sevens and do it for the first time on the World Series as well next month, which I am absolutely humming for. I'm so excited about. So that's kind of a little bit of what I do across the commentary space. I do a lot of expert roles with Stan, but then hopefully across the Super W and maybe transition into a bit of first voice play as well, with the ultimate goals of being able to call a first voice game in Brisbane 2032. Imagine calling the gold medal.
Hell yeah.
As a previous gold medalist, I just think that would be just epic if I got to call Australia winning. So I'm already visualizing that. That's
Love it.
And calling some of the Rugby World Cup 29 games as well would be incredible here on home soil in Australia as well. So there's one of my big aspirations in rugby. So I'm just continually learning and upskilling in those to hopefully be able to achieve them as well too.
Yeah. Well, I have absolutely no doubt you'll be doing that. And what a full circle moment that will be, hey? You're commentating Australia winning gold after having won gold. I think that's a fairy tale ending. So looking forward to you making that happen.
Yeah, I hope so. It'll be a very cool headline.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll have to be a Netflix documentary or something made on that one.
Yeah. But same as like I've had some incredible mentors that have helped me and shape that, and just having those people that are in that industry that have reached out and supported and coaching me. And I'm back to the same as what you used to watch games and analyze. I'm practicing commentating on YouTube at home, with someone, like, sending voice recordings to people to get better at it as well. It's the same kind of mindset as what I had with playing, because those skills are so transferable. And so I think it's great to see when that comes into fruition and people understand that, oh, that's why you do and behave the way you are, because, oh, you used to be an elite athlete. Like, people recognize that. And I think it's, having those right people that want to support and nurture that are really important for players as they go beyond the game, and don't see, and they also, those businesses now don't see the fact that I have 2 children as a barrier to me performing well.
Yeah, exactly right. And it just says a lot about why we need to keep more girls and women in sport, because, as we say, sport is just a vehicle to life. It's where you get to practice all these life skills like leadership, resilience, teamwork, and all these things that transfer so nicely into careers and just being a better person off the field. So, yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking when you see that girls are dropping out of sport at twice their age boys at 14 or 15, because not only are they missing lots of opportunities for themselves, but it's just like, look what society's going to miss out not having fully empowered women and girls who become women who lead, and vice versa. So, knowing that you've got 2 daughters now, what sort of a world do you want them to grow up in terms of sport?
Well, I think they have been, I guess, so blessed in the fact that they get to watch my best friends, my teammates on TV from day dot. We have a beautiful book that my really good friend Chloe Dalton wrote in the A to Z of who I could be. And, like, they get to open that book and their mum's in the book. Like, that didn't
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
happen.
That's a bit of a flex, isn't it?
That didn't happen like, for me when I was growing up. And so they've been so fortunate to have that opportunity, that it is at this day and age for them, that's just normal, that their friends, who they call, Dom and Charlotte and all of the Bella Nasser, all their friends, and Maddie Levi, that they're playing on the international stage day in, day out and wearing the green and gold jersey. And that is normal for them, and that they're performing and outperforming consistently. So incredible. They got to see their mum go to the record-breaking Rugby World Cup last year, where there was 80,000 people packed out. It's Twickenham, I'm sending them videos of me in the crowd, and they know that that's just normal, that, like, they think that their mum goes to London every week for that. Like, that's normal, that's their world. And they also were then exposed to growing up on a rugby field where their dad was playing as well too, and that their mum got to do both roles, and that was all normal as well too. So they're very fortunate that what they've been exposed to from an early age is that there is an equal playing field for them, and that there is no boundaries for them so far, which I only want to see that excel, and that hopefully when their time comes, and if they choose whatever they choose to do, they get to just do it, because it doesn't matter what their gender is. It's because they love the sport and they want to see it grow and develop and be involved. They also get to see me now. If I wanted to, I could play league in my local community, but I chose to play league tag. I play netball. They see their mums still continuing to play sport, and heaps of other mums, and that all the kids are down there playing and supporting and running around as well too. So they see that physical activity is normal. It's a normal part of life, and that you want to be able to do it. And it's also really fun. Like, Tilly's learning how to surf, and she absolutely just loves it. It's time with her family. It's time with her friends. And knowing that physical activity is not, you don't have to be an elite athlete to be able to do it. You just get to do it because it's enjoyable. It makes you feel good. And that they both ultimately love doing it. So that is my biggest hope for them. They just continue to see sport as just something that's so fun to do. It doesn't have to be competitive. It just is a great way to burn some energy, make yourself happy, get some good endorphins, and have some fun with your mates while you do it. Which ultimately, when I reflect on my international career, all I did was play rugby around the world with a few of my best friends. Like,
Yeah, pretty
it's
cool,
pretty
mate.
cool. Like, so it's the same. It's the same for them.
Yeah. And I think, the key thing that you said there is like it's exposure, right? They've grown up seeing that. So, it says a lot about the media's role in how we can change narratives. And if we show this being the norm, well, then the norm, becomes what we expect. And it's not seeing women as this marginalized gender who, don't get paid equally, that don't get the same opportunities as men, because we need to showcase these stories firsthand. And then young girls grow up thinking, well, why shouldn't I have the same opportunities? Because they're already seeing it in their heroes. So while social media can be such a negative and toxic place, it also is a platform that can show, all the good things and show how far we've come, and continue showing narratives like yourself about, how you can be an elite female athlete and be a mother and just create the norm.
Yeah. And then also in the media space too, like they see me standing as the only female on a male game broadcast panel, or as the only female doing the Rugby World Cup draw there's a picture of, there's 10 World Rugby delegates and past players and then myself. So they see that that visibility. It might be less, but they see for them that that's their mum and there is a female there, so that it must be normal. But they also do ask, Mum, how come that you're the only one in the picture? You're the only girl. And they're having those conversations already as well. But knowing that there is still that gap to change, probably more in that broadcast space, and then that their mum's doing everything she can to try and help facilitate that as well.
So, finishing off on the classic 4TG question, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
Ooh. My 16-year-old self was pretty naughty. Not actually that naughty.
Should I ask your mother this question instead?
Wait, it wasn't actually that naughty. I think at that stage I had thought that touch football was I probably had put a ceiling at that stage. I put a ceiling on what my sporting achievements and capabilities were going to be. I just played touch for Australia at the youth competition, and then I was pushing towards like Aussie Open Women's at the time. And so I think I would tell her that the same thing, that your opportunity, there is a world of opportunity out there for you. Don't ever cap yourself on what you're capable of achieving. 2 years later, I got a letter in the mail asking me to come to the AIS and try the sport of rugby sevens, which has completely changed the trajectory of my life. Whereas before that, I was thinking I was going to play touch for Australia for the rest of my life and open my own physio practice, and that be it. And, the current boyfriend I was dating at the time was probably going to be my husband forever. It's like, don't limit the opportunities that you have available for you, because you never know when that next letter in the mail is going to show up, or when that next opportunity is going to come for you.
I love that. I love that a lot. And things have worked out pretty damn well for you. So that's, very good advice. Proof in the pudding. Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for jumping on. And honestly, thank you for paving the way that you can be an elite athlete and a super mum and come back and be an even better athlete. And for all the work that you're doing in the space and in the media front as well, and, helping change that narrative. I'm sure the listeners will get lots of value from that chat, especially those who are contemplating whether they have to give up their elite career or just their, casual weekend warrior status to be a mum.
Never.
So you've proved that you can do both. And I'm very excited to see you call the 2032 Brisbane Olympics. Where can listeners go and follow you on social media? What's the best handle?
Yeah, so it's Alicia_Quirk. Even though my name's Alicia Lucas, I haven't changed I'm not very tech savvy, so I don't even know how you do that. So yeah, it's Alicia_Quirk on Instagram, which is the only one I use because I am not the TikTok generation that got famous from TikTok.
Oh, no.
But no, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And hats off to you, Kylie, for doing the great work for 4TG. That if there's not people speaking about it and creating even more visibility and having that conversation in the room, then no one is aware of what actual good things is out there to be celebrated, pushed for, and more to be done in the space as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And for all the listeners out there, if you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to a coach who might need to hear it, or anyone else who, is in that space of wanting to still be a mother and an athlete as well. And be sure to go and follow 4TG. Alicia, thank you very much. And I look forward to watching the next chapter and seeing you at the 2032 Olympics.
Thanks. Fingers crossed. Let's hope our nine's listening.
Absolutely, I'm sure they are. Alrighty, thank you. You've been listening to 4TG, where the future of women's sport is being shaped, one story at a time. If today's episode hit home, subscribe, rate 5 stars, and send it to someone who needs that push. Stay in the loop at 4TG_podcast or on 4TG.com. We'll see you next time. Same mission, same movement. This one was for the girls.